In 2017, there were over 700 Toys R Us stores across the United States. Children had grown up with them. Parents had spent entire Saturday afternoons inside them. For decades, the name alone conjured something: the smell of plastic packaging, the noise of demonstration toys, aisles that seemed to go on forever. By 2018, every single one of those stores was gone. This isn't a story about the internet killing retail. It's more specific than that, and more instructive. Because Toys R Us didn't fail because children stopped wanting toys. They failed because of a single decision made in a boardroom in 2000 that quietly set the countdown timer ticking. Let's go back to the beginning. Toys R Us was founded in 1948 by Charles Lazarus, a World War II veteran who opened a baby furniture store in Washington, D.C. He noticed parents kept asking him about toys, so he started stocking them. By the 1950s, he had pivoted entirely to toys and discovered something that would define the company for the next 4 decades: volume. If you sold enough of one toy, you could negotiate better prices from manufacturers than any department store could. Lower prices brought in more customers. More customers meant more volume. More volume meant even lower prices. It was a flywheel, and it worked brilliantly. Through the 1970s and 80s, Toys R Us expanded across America and then the world, bulldozing local toy shops in its path. By 1990, they controlled nearly 25% of the entire U.S. toy market. They were, in every sense, the category killer of their era. But category killers have a weakness: they're built for dominance in a single environment. And environments change. The year 2000, the dot-com boom is reshaping retail. A new website called Amazon is beginning to sell more than just books. Toys R Us, watching the internet with alarm, made what seemed like a pragmatic decision. Rather than build their own e-commerce infrastructure from scratch, they would partner with Amazon to sell toys online. Amazon would handle the logistics and the platform. Toys R Us would be the exclusive toy seller on the site. It seemed like a smart hedge, a way to have an internet presence without the expense of building one. But the contract contained a flaw, or rather, Amazon did what Amazon does. Amazon quietly allowed other third-party toy sellers onto the platform, breaking the exclusivity agreement. Toys R Us sued in 2004 and won, which allowed them to exit the deal in 2006. But here's the damage. For 6 critical years, Toys R Us had outsourced its future. While competitors were learning how e-commerce worked, building logistics networks, understanding digital customers, developing algorithms, Toys R Us had been paying someone else to do it. They had no institutional knowledge, no infrastructure, no data. When they finally launched their own website, they were half a decade behind. And that wasn't even the worst decision of the era. In 2005, Toys R Us was taken private in a leveraged buyout by 3 private equity firms: KKR, Vornado Realty Trust, and Bain Capital. The deal was worth $6.6 billion. Leveraged buyouts work like this: the acquiring firms borrow a large portion of the purchase price and then attach that debt to the company being bought. The company is now responsible for paying it off. Toys R Us took on roughly $5 billion in debt from the transaction. In the years that followed, the company was spending somewhere between $400 and $500 million per year just on interest payments alone, not paying down the principal, not investing in stores, not building an e-commerce platform, just servicing the interest. To put that in perspective, Walmart spent $2 billion building out its digital infrastructure in the same period. Target was redesigning its stores, Amazon was perfecting one-day shipping, Toys R Us was spending its capital before it even reached the business. A company that might have survived the Amazon era with investment and adaptation was instead running with its hands tied. Every strategic decision was filtered through one question: can we afford this? And the answer increasingly was no. There's a version of this story where Toys R Us reinvents itself as an experience, a destination that Amazon couldn't replicate. The store as spectacle. They had the footprint. They had the brand recognition. Children still wanted to see toys, touch them, try them, but walking into a Toys R Us in 2012 or 2013 felt like walking into 1995. The stores were aging. The lighting was harsh. Displays were uninspired. There was rarely anyone available to help you. Compare that to the Apple Store, which had mastered the idea of retail as experience. Or even Lego, which opened small, carefully designed stores with hands-on building stations and a sense of discovery. Toys R Us had the opportunity to become the museum of childhood, a place where kids could actually engage with toys rather than just stare at boxed products on shelves. Instead, the debt meant there was no money for renovation, and without renovation, there was no reason to visit when Amazon would deliver the same toy to your door the next morning, usually cheaper. The stores weren't just failing to compete, they were actively reminding customers why online shopping was better. In September 2017, Toys R Us filed for bankruptcy protection. They promised it was a restructuring, not a death sentence, that they would use the breathing room to modernize and compete. That turned out not to be true. By June 2018, the company announced it would close or sell all of its U.S. stores. The bankruptcy had spooked suppliers, who began demanding payment upfront. That made the holiday season, the lifeblood of any toy retailer, nearly impossible to stock for. The liquidation sales drew enormous crowds. Families who hadn't visited in years came to say goodbye. The emotional response was striking and telling. People cared about Toys R Us. They just hadn't been given a reason to visit. Around 33,000 employees lost their jobs. Many of them received no severance, despite the private equity firms having collected significant fees throughout the ownership period. It became a case study in the darker side of leveraged buyouts. What happens to workers when financial engineering goes wrong? The collapse of Toys R Us is a story with several authors. There's the Amazon deal, a failure of strategic foresight at exactly the moment foresight mattered most. There's the leveraged buyout, which turned a struggling but viable company into one that was mathematically incapable of investing in its own survival. There's the failure of experience, an inability to answer the fundamental retail question of the 21st century: why should someone come here instead of ordering from home? And underneath all of it, there's a reminder that brand loyalty, however deep, is not a business model. Children loved Toys R Us. Parents had nostalgia for it. Geoffrey the Giraffe was genuinely beloved. None of that was enough, because love without a reason to show up, love without convenience or value or experience, eventually becomes just a memory. And that's what Toys R Us is now.